In 1996, in the south side of Chicago, Illinois, there stood an old residential building that locals avoided after dark. It wasn't abandoned. People lived there. But something inside it made even long-term tenants uneasy. What I'm about to tell you is shared as a true story, passed down through police records, missing person reports, and the whispered memories of former residents who refused to ever return. They all mentioned the same thing, the same apartment, and the same man. Apartment 9B. They said the man inside never aged. And once you noticed him, he noticed you too. I moved into the Blackwood Crest Apartments in late October of 1996. The building was cheap, quiet, and old enough to have a smell that never quite went away. Damp walls, rusted pipes, and something faintly metallic in the air. My name is Elliot Varn. I was 27 years old, male, working night shifts as a freelance photo editor. I needed silence more than comfort, and Blackwood Crest promised exactly that. On my first night, I noticed something strange. The tenant directory in the lobby listed apartment numbers and names. Next to 9B, there was no name, just a blank space. When I asked the front desk clerk, a tired woman named Marlo Hensley, she paused for a second too long before saying, "Someone lives there. He prefers privacy." That should have been my first warning. The building had 9 floors. Apartment 9B was on the top floor, at the very end of the hallway. I didn't see the man at first. I felt him. Whenever I passed that hallway, the air felt heavier, like the building itself was holding its breath. The lights flickered more often there, and my footsteps sounded louder, sharper, as if the floor was hollow beneath me. After 2 weeks, I finally saw him. It was early morning, around 3:17 a.m., when the elevator doors opened on the 9th floor. He stood there already, facing away from me. Tall, thin, perfectly still. He wore an old gray coat that looked decades out of style. His hair was dark, neatly combed, without a single strand of gray. When he turned his head slightly, I caught a glimpse of his face. He looked young, not young, but unchanged, like a photograph that never fades. He nodded politely, stepped aside, and said nothing. No smell. No sound of breathing, just silence. Over the next few months, I noticed something unsettling. Tenants aged. The building aged. But the man from 9B never did. I saw him in old photographs taped near the mailboxes, community events from the early 80s, even the late 70s. And there he was. Same face, same posture, same expression, different decades. Same man. When I asked other residents, they avoided the topic. Some laughed nervously. Others went silent. One neighbor, Rowan Blythe, a 62-year-old retired electrician, finally whispered to me in the stairwell, "He's been here longer than the building admits." Then he added something that still makes my skin crawl. People who get curious don't renew their lease. At night, I began noticing the lights. Apartment 9B's windows were always dark, no lamps, no television glow. But after midnight, faint movements of light slid across the blinds, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing with a candle. Once, I stood across the street and watched. The lights moved, then stopped, and the blinds twitched, as if something inside had turned to look directly at me. One evening, I heard knocking above my ceiling. Slow, measured, rhythmic. When I went upstairs to complain, the hallway outside 9B was empty. But the door was warm. Not from sunlight, not from heating. Warm like living skin. Pressed against the wood, I swear I heard breathing. Deep, patient, and satisfied. That was the night I decided I needed to know what was inside apartment 9B. And once I made that decision, the man finally noticed me. After that night outside apartment 9B, I started paying closer attention to the people around me. Or rather, to the people who were suddenly gone. It started small. A woman from 6A named Narissa Colwick stopped checking her mail. Then Theo Markham, a graduate student from 4C, didn't come home one night. Management said he moved out unexpectedly. No forwarding address. No notice. Their doors stayed locked. Their names stayed on the directory. But their apartments were silent. I began noticing a pattern. Every missing tenant had something in common. They lived alone, kept odd hours, and had mentioned apartment 9B at least once in passing. A complaint, a joke, a question. Curiosity, it seemed, was the real lease violation. Late one night, unable to sleep, I dug through old storage boxes in the basement. That's where I found them, dusty folders stuffed behind a broken boiler. Tenant records, going back to 1962. And there it was again. Apartment 9B. No name, no lease end date, no changes. Every decade showed new tenants around it. Names crossed out, marked vacated, missing, or simply unaccounted for. The handwriting changed. The ink faded, but 9B stayed the same. I confronted Marlo Hensley again. This time, she didn't pretend. Her hands trembled as she lit a cigarette behind the front desk. "You shouldn't be digging," she said quietly. "He doesn't like being remembered." When I asked who he was, she looked toward the elevator, even though it wasn't there. "He was here before me, before my mother, and he'll be here after you." Then she whispered something I'll never forget. "He feeds on attention first." The knocking returned that night. But this time, it wasn't above me. It was at my door. 3 slow taps, perfectly spaced. When I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. Yet the smell was unmistakable now. Old paper, rust, and something sweet beneath it, like decaying flowers. I opened the door just a crack. Nothing. But on the floor sat a single photograph. It was black and white. It showed my apartment hallway, taken from the ceiling corner. And there I was, standing outside 9B days earlier, my hand inches from the door. Someone had been watching me. For a long time. I couldn't stop myself anymore. 2 nights later, I waited until the building was silent. The elevator was broken again, so I climbed the stairs to the 9th floor. Every step felt heavier than the last. Apartment 9B stood at the end of the hallway, just as always. No decorations, no scratches, no sign of wear. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was cold and stale, like a sealed tomb. The room was nearly empty. No furniture, no bed, no personal belongings. Just walls, covered, floor to ceiling, with photographs. Hundreds of them. Men, women, children, couples, elderly, young, all former tenants, all staring directly into the camera. Some photos were recent. Some were decades old, but none of the faces looked dead. They looked paused, frozen mid-existence. Then I noticed the floor. Glass jars, dozens of them, lined up neatly. Inside each jar floated a single human eye, perfectly preserved, glossy, and intact. Some were blue, some brown, some cloudy with age. All of them open, watching. That's when I heard the door close behind me, slowly, without a sound. And a voice spoke, calm, smooth, and timeless. "You stayed longer than most." I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My body refused to obey, like the air itself had weight. The jars on the floor trembled slightly, glass clicking against glass, as if reacting to the sound of his voice. "You've been watching me," I finally said. A soft breath escaped behind me, not surprised, not offended. "Yes," he replied. "And so have they." The photographs on the walls shifted. Not physically. Something in their expressions changed. Eyes sharpening, mouths tightening, as though they were suddenly aware of me standing there. I felt hundreds of gazes press into my back. When I turned, he was closer than he should have been. The man from 9B stood only a few feet away. Up close, his face was flawless. No wrinkles, no scars, no signs of age. But there was something wrong beneath it. His eyes were too still, too focused, like lenses waiting to capture something. "I don't take lives," he said calmly. "I collect moments." He gestured toward the photographs. "People don't disappear," he continued. "They remain observed." He told me his name once. Not a name meant for mouths. Not something that could survive being spoken aloud. So I'll call him Mr. Halvrix. He explained that time doesn't move forward for him the way it does for us. He exists in pauses, in the space between seconds. And buildings like Blackwood Crest, old and layered with memory, make perfect anchors. Walls remember, he said softly, and people leave marks. He feeds on those marks. Attention, curiosity, fear, and when that isn't enough, he preserves what remains. I asked him about the eyes. He smiled, gently. Sight is the last thing people surrender, he said. I keep it, so they can witness forever. He walked past me, brushing my shoulder. I felt it then. Cold. And hunger. Not for flesh. For me. He showed me a photograph from 1974. A young man stood in the same spot I was standing now. Same terror in his eyes. Same stiff posture. Same realization dawning too late. That was the first tenant who knocked, Halvrik said. He asked questions. The jars began to hum. A low vibration filled the room, and suddenly I understood something horrifying. The people in the photographs weren't dead. They were still here, aware, watching, trapped inside a single preserved second. You're different, Halvrik said, tilting his head. You observe before you act. That makes you valuable. He raised a hand. The photographs rustled like leaves in a dead forest. I could keep you, he said, or I could let you go. My heart slammed against my ribs. Why? I asked. His smile faded. Because every building needs one witness. The door to apartment 9B opened by itself. The hallway outside was darker than it should have been. Longer. Unfamiliar. You may leave, Halvrik said. But once you do, you will always feel me watching. I ran. I didn't stop until I was 3 floors down, gasping, shaking, unable to scream. Behind me, the door closed. And somewhere above, something clicked like a camera shutter. After that night, Blackwood Crest stopped behaving like a building. It behaved like a thing that was awake. The hallways felt longer. Corners appeared where there had never been turns before. Doors I passed every day now carried different numbers, as if the building was quietly rearranging itself when no one was looking. And the mirrors no longer reflected me correctly. Sometimes I blinked, and my reflection didn't. People began acting wrong. Residents stared too long. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Footsteps echoed where no one stood. I noticed tenants pausing outside apartment 9B without realizing it. Hands hovering inches from the door, eyes unfocused, breathing shallow. They never remembered stopping there. But the photographs on the walls inside 9B grew. I knew this without seeing them. Marlo Hensley disappeared on a Tuesday. Her desk sat empty. Her cigarette pack still rested in the drawer. The building claimed she quit. That night, a new photograph appeared taped to the lobby wall, old, black and white. It showed Marlo behind the front desk, looking directly at me. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw jars, rows and rows of glass, eyes drifting slowly inside them, tracking me as I moved. I woke up tasting metal, my ears ringing with the sound of shutters snapping shut. Once, at exactly 3:17 a.m., my apartment lights turned off by themselves. In the dark, I heard breathing. Not inside my room. Inside my walls. I tried to leave. The elevator wouldn't go down. The stairs looped. Every exit door led back into the lobby. Blackwood Crest had sealed itself. Not physically, but conceptually. Like the idea of leaving no longer applied. That's when I understood what Halvrik's meant. The building needed a witness. And it was preparing me. Tenants began coming to me. One by one. They knocked on my door, confused, frightened, asking the same questions. Do you hear it too? Why do the photos look familiar? Why does apartment 9B feel closer every night? I tried warning them. They smiled politely and forgot everything by morning. 2 days later, their apartments were empty. I returned to the 9th floor. The door to 9B was open again. Inside, the photographs now included me. Dozens of angles, moments I didn't remember living. Sleeping, writing, watching the hallway. And on the floor, a new jar. Empty. Waiting. Behind me, Halvrik spoke. You are becoming permanent, he said. The building has accepted you. I turned, shaking. I don't want this, I said. He stepped closer, his face finally changing, not aging, but thinning, stretching, as if time were pressing against him from all sides. "Neither did the first one," he replied, "and neither will the next." That's when I realized the truth. Halvrix didn't own Blackwood Crest. He was trapped inside it too, and he needed someone to replace him. I don't know how long I stayed in apartment 9B that night. Time didn't pass normally there. Minutes stretched into hours, then collapsed into seconds. The photographs on the walls pulsed softly, like breathing lungs, each one holding a moment stolen from someone who once believed they were safe. Halvrix stood near the center of the room, his posture no longer perfect. Cracks had begun to form in him. Fine lines ran across his face, not wrinkles, fractures, as if the years he had avoided were finally pressing in all at once. "You see it now," he said quietly. "This place does not let witnesses leave forever." He told me the truth. Blackwood Crest wasn't built on cursed land. It became cursed the moment the first witness refused to look away. Decades ago, Halvrix had been like me, curious, observant, convinced that knowing the truth would keep him safe. When the previous keeper vanished, the building chose him. And now, it had chosen me. "The building preserves itself," Halvrix said. "It feeds on attention, on memory, on those who notice." I looked at the empty jar on the floor. My jar. I made my choice when the lights flickered. I grabbed one of the jars and smashed it against the wall. The sound was deafening. Every photograph screamed. Not aloud, inside my skull. The room shook violently, walls peeling, images tearing themselves apart. Halvrix staggered back, his form blurring, his voice breaking into overlapping echoes. "You don't understand," he began. But I did. Witnesses only have power while they remain silent. I ran. This time, the stairs didn't loop. The exit doors opened. I burst out into the cold Chicago night as sirens wailed in the distance. Police, fire trucks, lights painting the building red and blue. Blackwood Crest was condemned within weeks after a series of unexplained structural failures. Officials said it was unsafe. A demolition followed. Apartment 9B was never found. I left Chicago in early 1997. I stopped taking photographs, stopped living alone, stopped staring too long at dark windows. But some nights, at exactly 3:17 a.m., I feel it. That pressure behind my eyes. Like something checking to see if I'm still watching. And I know this much is true. Buildings remember. And once you notice them noticing you, you never really stop being seen. If this story disturbed you, you're not alone. Many people claim they've lived in buildings where something felt aware, watching, waiting, remembering. If you've ever experienced something similar, share your story in the comments below. Your experience matters, and someone else may need to hear it. If you enjoyed this true horror story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves dark, realistic horror stories. Thank you for listening. And remember, some doors stay closed for a reason.